With more than $9 billion in bilateral trade done between Colombia and Florida each year, leaders are eager to increase the nation's business profile here. We'll talk with Bolivar from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Metro Orlando about how Central Florida is helping to build the Colombian brand in the United States, next on Metro Center Outlook.
This program is made possible by funding from the UCF Metro Center, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.
Hello everyone, welcome to Metro Center Outlook. I'm Diane Trees, Director of the UCF Metro Center and your host for Metro Center Outlook. With the third largest economy in South America, Colombia is swiftly becoming a global economic force. Here in Florida, Colombia's second largest trade partner, leaders across the state are eager to attract business, job creation, and investment. Among them is Bolivar, the new president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Metro Orlando. She joins me today to discuss trade and development. Deanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Diane. It's very nice to be here with you today.
You've just taken over as president of the Hispanic Chamber. What are your priorities for the Chamber this year?
Well, it's an exciting year to be in business in Central Florida. As Chamber President, one of the things that I really want to do this year is focus on our Chamber members, on return on investment and value-added propositions for our membership. I think more and more, folks, business owners are looking to see why they should be, part of a chamber. And as our chamber, being one of the largest in Central Florida, I think it's important that we focus on good economic propositions for our members.
Well, the Chamber was recently recognized as the 2012 Hispanic Chamber of the Year by the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. That's a significant award. And what value is that bringing to how's that impacted the Chamber?
Oh, hugely, huge impact for us, because this is a recognition out of over 200 large chambers across 50 United States. So if you think about the impact that this has, we have chambers, phenomenal chambers, Hispanic chambers out on the West Coast and the Northeast, and we were chosen
lots of competition for
lots
this,
of competition. So to be chosen as the best chamber in the United States it's a huge privilege. And what it has done is that it has put us in a position of being recognized nationally, which in turn what it does is it gives our members an opportunity to diversify and network, not just locally, nationally and internationally. And corporate America has taken notice of what we do here in Central Florida.
Well, how does the Hispanic Chamber then foster the elements of trade and commerce? And I'm sure that's important for bringing in your members.
Absolutely. I think trade and commerce, in particular to not just the Chamber, but to the Hispanic Chamber, is very important because we're made up of immigrants. We're made up of immigrants who have connections in Latin America. So all of us have all these connections already, when we come to this country, be it family or friends or, just by the nature of who we are. And so to be able to connect with those businesses and to be able to say, yes, I have a business in Central Florida and I can diversify that business by doing business with Latin America is huge return on investment, especially when it is a global economy. I think we have to think in those terms. And when we think in those terms, everybody wins. And Central Florida will be a lot better off for it.
So you have almost a built-in mission right with that for the connection with the international trade as well as just the trade throughout the state and then the United States.
Absolutely. Our mission is to provide leadership and support economic development in Central Florida. And for us who live here, especially for me as Chamber President, this is my home. I've been here for over 20 years. And my son is here. He's at school at UCF. I mean, this is where we live and work and play, and it's important to affect economic development here, but having those connections abroad, we diversify that economy by bringing more business, more commerce here, and there's so much to be done with being Colombia, for example, being the second partner to Florida, and geographically speaking, we're in a great position to do business with all of Latin America.
Well, with the growing Hispanic population in Central Florida, does that give us a regional advantage for attracting business investors from Spanish-speaking countries?
It gives us a huge advantage, so much so that other countries are coming to Florida to use Florida as a gateway to do business with Latin America. For example, I had the Consul of Canada come and meet with me because more and more Canadian businesses are looking to do business with Colombia through Florida.
I would never have thought that, that connection. That's fantastic.
It is. It's pretty exciting. We have other states, you know, we have Colorado, we have Michigan, other states who actually are using our connections here in Florida to get to Colombia and other Latin American countries.
Well, with Latin America, that accounts for 60% of Florida's merchandise trade. But why focus in on Colombia?
Well, we just signed the trade agreement.
The free trade agreement.
This is something that since 2006 we were looking to, you know.
Took a long time to get it through.
Took a long time, but we're so thrilled that it finally got signed last year. And it's extremely important because, you know, 100% of all the U.S. exports are tariff-free when they go into Colombia. There is so much synergy between Colombia and Central Florida in agriculture, in manufacturing, in energy, in the simulation industry, which is big for Florida. Tourism as well, being the #1 tourist destination in the world, doesn't hurt Florida to position us, in particular Central Florida, to be a good exporter and a friend of Colombia, who has come a long way.
So we are an attractive trading partner then for Colombia, as well as the mutual benefits.
Yes.
Now, with the Chamber perspective, when you go on a trade mission trip, what did you hope to gain when you went from your first trade mission?
Absolutely. You know, we've done several trade missions at the Chamber, Colombia being the one that we focused in 2012 as a result of the free trade agreement, and the support that we received locally, not just from the private sector, but also from the public sector. So what we hope to gain is what we do best, which is networking. We're very good at doing networking at a local level, and we wanted to bring that networking to Latin America, in particular to Colombia. And that grassroots effort of not only showing Colombia that Central Florida is not just about Mickey Mouse, which is wonderful, and the tourism industry is incredibly important to Central Florida, but there's so much more that we can offer, and that branding opportunity is really done through grassroots efforts such as these trade missions. So it gives us that opportunity to show Colombia what we can do as a business together.
So your goals when you go on a trade mission like this really are quite a broad spectrum.
Absolutely.
You're not only looking at hospitality, tourism angles, but you're bringing what else? The modeling and simulation industry?
Yeah, there's over 300 companies in simulation, modeling and simulation training here, and the opportunities are abound. Colombia is particularly interested in the medical simulation field, energy, terrorism. There's a lot of simulation that's extremely important to Colombia that they could utilize the services of Florida. The manufacturing textiles industry is huge for Colombia, construction as well. So while the construction industry hasn't grown in the last few years here in Central Florida, it's booming in Colombia. What this does is it gives large construction companies here in Florida an opportunity to do business with Colombia.
So there are quite a few elements then involved. Were you surprised at what you saw in Colombia in terms of economic activities?
I'm not surprised because I am from Colombia and I've been able to see the growth of my country for the last 30, 40 years. Colombia is a country that has been in turmoil for over 50 years. With the violence that we had in the 50s and the 60s, and with the Revolutionary Armed Forces, the FARC as they're known, guerrilla terrorists who have really hijacked the country over the last 20, 30 years. But during the late 1990s and certainly in the last 10 years, through new leadership with President Uribe and now with President Santos.
Who I believe you met on one of the...
Yes, absolutely. I know President Uribe. I've had the privilege of meeting him, so it's very exciting. But in our mission with Mayor Jacobs in August of 2012, we were able to meet President Santos. And they're visionaries. They're presidents, leaders who have really taken the security of the country and have turned it around. And the FARC is, you know, they've met a force to be reckoned with in the leadership that we have. So Colombia is a different country now than it was back in the 90s or even in the early 2000s. What it is today, it's a very vibrant economy. It's the third largest growing in Latin America and South America.
Would you say that it's undergone an economic renaissance, or even in the process still?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, two things that I think are quite interesting about Colombia. We were voted the happiest places to live in the world in 2012.
I'll have to visit.
Absolutely. Diane, you would love it. It's wonderful. And we're also, Citibank is doing a survey worldwide, and we're in Medellin, which is another city that we visited, is in the top 3 most innovative and entrepreneurship cities in the world. So we're in the top 3 with New York, Tel Aviv, and Medellin. So that survey is still out there. But to be recognized in the same category as innovation with New York and Tel Aviv, that speaks
I don't think a lot of
1,000
people are
words.
aware of what has happened in Colombia and the growth and what's to offer like that. One of the other important outcomes from your trade mission trips, you signed, I believe, more than one economic cooperation agreement with chambers of commerce in Colombia. What does that mean?
Well, for us as a chamber, it's extremely important to have those collaborations. We do it here locally. You know, I think it's really important for all of us to collaborate. And that partnership and that collaboration is something that's really important to our Hispanic chamber. We believe in partnerships. I don't believe in duplicating efforts. And having those partnerships are extremely important because emotionally intelligent, you know, it allows us the opportunity to be able to do better business together and grow together. And we signed one with Pasto, Nariño, which is an area of Colombia where there's a lot of, where there's coffee growing and there's artisans and a lot of artists who really are interested in doing business with Central Florida, in particular Central Florida. So that allows us an opportunity to work closer together. Cartagena is another chamber that we signed an agreement with, and those are incredibly important to the success of these trade missions.
When you said, we mentioned the Entrepreneur Center.
Yes.
With the technical differences or even facilities in a difference like that, they're saying there are similarities then with what we have in Orlando.
You would be surprised at the entrepreneurship centers that you see in Medellin, for example.
Is it small business, that spirit?
It's always that small business, that entrepreneurial spirit, and it's small business is what drives the economy, not only in our chamber, locally, but nationally. It really is what makes the economy go around, and the same happens in Colombia. And the entrepreneurship spirit there is phenomenal. It's the same that we see here. And Jerry Ross, who visited with us from the National Entrepreneur of the National Entrepreneur Center, he was so excited to see all of these businesses who really had the same hunger and passion that we have here.
Circling back to Central Florida then, what resources do we have here that attracts Hispanic business investors?
Being the #1 tourist destination in the world with over 56 million visitors.
So that still draws attention
still draws,
initially.
Absolutely. Geographically speaking, we're 3 hours away from Colombia, for example, by plane. All of these direct flights that we now have really position us to be able to do business with Colombia, for example. And for us, what Central Florida offers with the Latin American, with the Hispanic population growing at 195% in the last 10 years, it gives us a good synergy to be able to work on so many different gamuts. We have manufacturing, textiles, so many different industries, you know, the flowers, the coffee, the bananas, all of those things that are important to Florida that, you know, we can offer Central America.
Let's talk a little bit about those commodities that flow then between Florida and Colombia. Just mention a few of them so we know what goes back.
Absolutely. Bananas, flowers.
Flowers especially, and then fruit.
Fruit, all kinds of fruit.
From
Papaya,
Colombia to Florida.
From Colombia to Florida. Nuts. We have coffee, cocoa. So there's a lot in the agricultural world. There's so much that we offer. A lot of different exotic fruits that aren't grown here in Florida that come from Colombia. So in that regard, There's quite a bit that we offer. In the textile industry, you'd be amazed that if you check out the department stores and you look at the tabs, you'll see the tags, you'll see made in Colombia as opposed to China or Korea. You'd be surprised how much of that is made there.
I was reading that there are a number of the imports and exports that are actually complementary in nature. We, I believe, provide cotton and yarn as an export to Colombia.
Absolutely.
And then men's clothing in particular, I was reading, is a really hot item coming in from Colombia.
Absolutely, and that is very true. And so those synergies, I think, is what really makes it a good fit for us to do
business. A lot of things to make us match together. Does having a consulate in the city of Orlando, a Colombian consulate, does that make a difference?
Huge, huge. With over 38,000 Colombians living in Central Florida, that was something that we had been working on for over 10 years to try and bring a consulate here. And clearly, Colombia saw the need to have that. This consulate not only serves Central Florida, but we serve North Florida, Tampa, Jacksonville. There's so many different areas of folks that were traveling to Miami that now can just come to Central Florida. So it's a big opportunity for us to be able to continue to connect.
Now in December, I believe, there's a daily nonstop that began from Bogota to OIA, and already the economic projection is $16 million a year. How does that tie in with what you see for trade in Central Florida?
It's extremely important, and we're working on other airlines to also do that, to bring those direct flights. Right now we have one airline that travels from Orlando to Panama to Colombia directly. We have the other one who does the direct flight from Orlando to Bogota. We're looking at a flight from Orlando to Medellin, and there's a lot of airlines who are already looking at those routes to see how they can partner with Colombia through Orlando to be able to do business. So this allows Colombians an opportunity to really continue to foster that economic growth for both of our countries.
So that's not only come to visit tourism, but it's also business trade going back and forth, and the ease of having the flights coming in makes a huge difference. You mentioned the free trade agreement that the United States finally signed with Colombia.
Yeah.
How has that facilitated what you're trying to do?
What that did for us, it really opened the doors for us to be able to bring in government. It's very difficult to have government involved in something when it's not officially available. So while
that
we
sanctioned things to interesting, yes.
Yeah, because we could have gone to Colombia and still and done our trade mission, but not necessarily with the support of government. And to be able to have our mayor travel with us, the Metro Orlando EDC, and other entities who otherwise probably would have passed on that opportunity.
I hadn't thought about that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's really remarkable, and I think it's what really positioned us to really follow Colombia as the next best thing to do in 2012 with regards to a trade mission for our chamber.
I know that you had mentioned the free trade agreement in terms of tariffs and easing restrictions for entry and that between the two countries, but that's an aspect that I hadn't considered, that it allowed you to expand other organizations that must be critical for support in really making a trade mission effective.
I really think that unless you have that, it's very difficult to make these a success. And for me in particular, having done trade missions for the last 20 years, I've seen all types of trade missions, and I think it's important that missions have a return on investment for those traveling and for what you're trying to do as your end result. So having the public and the private sector together to be able to see what can be done really is what impacts the success, the return on investment of those trade missions.
It's a great collaboration.
Yeah.
The ports here in Florida, we are expanding, we're dredging. Then we have the Panama Canal, also with the free trade agreement, the expansion of that canal completed in 2015. Do you think that the opportunities for more trade for Florida are coming along for us here?
Absolutely. Port Canaveral is a huge, huge importance, not only to Central Florida, but also to Latin America. They were with us on this trade mission.
I thought that I had read that they
Yes, yes. In the first mission, we had one of their high executives, Shannon Feely, travel with us, and then Stan Payne, the CEO, traveled on the second mission. And the reason for his second mission was a result of all the work that we were able to do in the first mission, which was really to connect Port Canaveral with a lot of the agricultural and trade ports in Colombia that were doing business with Jacksonville and Miami, very important ports, but this gave them an opportunity to start those conversations and to really look at how they could collaborate and work together. And a lot of negotiations are happening even as we speak.
That's wonderful, because you hear, I think, more of Miami is the port and even some of Tampa. But so you're saying that Port Canaveral is really going to be emerging as a bigger player as
They are a force to be reckoned with.
Very good, very good. Well, when you are going to other countries, especially Hispanic countries, I'm sure that there are variations in the language. How big is navigating the language barrier? How much does that affect your outreach efforts?
Well, Diane, let me put every Anglo-American at ease with this, because even us Hispanics have issues with this because we're all different. Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Venezuela, Puerto Ricans, Mexicans, Cubans, we all speak a different Spanish, and we all have variations of our culture that are different and personal to each country. So even us, we have
very
that.
different cultural aspects
Very,
involved.
very different. Our food is different, our dialect is different, our heritage somewhat is different. There's the mother country, obviously, that connects us all, but we're all different. So I think it's important in reaching the Hispanic market for not only Hispanics, but also the Anglo community, to appreciate and understand each country's
To recognize those differences.
and not put us all in one big bowl, because we're not. We're very different. And I think it's important when you're doing business with Hispanics is very different than doing business in the Anglo market. One of the big differences is that we like to do business face to face. We want to get to know you first. We want to eat and drink and be merry with you first. And
Is that
then
why
we'll do
Colombia is
business.
such a happy place?
I think that's true. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons, because we first want to get to know you. We want to see if we like you.
So relationships are key.
Huge, huge. And then once we've established that relationship, then we'll do business.
Deanna, we have $40 billion of exports flowing from Florida to South America on a yearly basis. Does the Chamber have any other countries in mind for future trade missions?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know, we've done Panama, we've done Mexico, Puerto Rico, Colombia, and we're looking at Central America, possibly Costa Rica. We're looking at Brazil. We're looking at Argentina. We're looking at Chile. Great emerging economies in Latin America that are a good fit, not only for the Chamber, but also for Central Florida.
You have a very busy agenda cut out for you already.
Oh, yes.
Thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations on your new role as Chamber President. You'll be wonderful.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
You're welcome. I've been talking about the growth of Hispanic investment in Central Florida with Deanna Bolivar, President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Metro Orlando. Thank you for tuning in to Metro Center Outlook. Until next time, I'm Diane Trees.
This program was made possible by funding from the UCF Metro Center, where government leaders, business executives, and academic experts come together to discuss major issues facing the state of Florida.